Today, we are fortunate to have FOMOF, one of the best players in the world of the game Scythe. In this video, we'll go play by play through a recent tournament game to give you some great strategy ideas here on Legendary Tactics. All right, well, great to connect with you again, FOMOF. It's been a little while.
Yeah, it has. Wonderful to talk to you.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing this game. Now, which game is this? You said it was game 2 of a tournament that's currently going on?
Yeah, it's a tournament that started right at the end of September. I'm calling it the September special in my videos. It is 3 preliminary rounds, and then the top 16 players get sorted essentially. The top 8 get double elimination on their way to finals, and then the next 8 essentially have to win back-to-back games to make it to finals. So this is my second game out of 3 games. It's a bid game, so we're going to be given combinations. You can see the combinations that are available for this game on the screen. And in a minute, the players, including myself, are all going to start bidding on these combinations.
Yeah, so how does the bidding actually work?
Well, we are blessed to know some people with enough computer skills to design an app for it. And I have a separate video called How to Balance Scythe where I go over how to use the app in detail. But the basic idea of bidding is that, and here you see the combinations are up on the board, and you're going to see them kind of the players start to bid. As you look at these starting combinations, you decide which ones you want and how much you want them. And you say, well, if I want, say, Polania Innovative at the bottom, what do I think I can do? I think I can win the game against all these other combinations, and if so, how much can I win by? And whoever's the boldest in how much they think they can win by is going to put the most money or in-game points down on Polania Innovative and walk away with it.
Yeah. Now the bidding is relative to everyone else, right? So everyone puts in their bid, and then you have to beat each faction by the specified amount?
Yes, the number everybody gets, the easiest way to think about it is the bid amount for each player at the end of the game is subtracted from their score. So right now I'm in this original video looking at the industrial board and talking about how Albion's going to be missing out on coin. We'll talk about that in just a second, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But if
Yes.
say Polania has a bid of 10, and to just say Rusviet is 5 and Tagawa and Albion are 0, they get those amounts deducted at the end of the game. So Polania has to beat Tagawa and Albion by 10 plus any tiebreaker, and Rusviet by 5 plus any tiebreaker to win the game. So it's not enough to win if you're the high bid. You have to win by, as you said, the difference between you and the other bid.
Interesting. So how do you figure out the fair price? Like what does your favorite faction typically go for as far as that goes?
Well, okay, so the hands down strongest combination in all of Scythe is Recipe and Innovative. And I
Yes.
will shamelessly toot my horn here for a second and just tell you I'm the one who broke it. So sorry about that. You can end the game reliably in 12 turns with a really high score, and it's almost impossible to stop you. Even if every single player in the game gangs up on you, sometimes it doesn't even happen. But for these combinations here, let's pull up something here. It's called a tier list, and it is, I think you can see it on your screen. I developed it with some other people, and it ranks the different combinations. And if you do a few searches for side tier list online, I'm sure you can find it pretty easily. It's also at belovedpacifist.com /tiers. You may be familiar with that site. So if you see up on this screen, Polania Innovative is on the top right. It's rated S tier, as is Rusviet Engineering on the top, near the top left there.
Yep.
Albion Industrial on the left side is D tier, and Tagawa Mechanical is right there at F tier. So
F tier. Jeez.
There's a pretty big difference in this game between the IFA factions, Rusviet and Polania, and you can already see that reflected in the bidding. I just took Polania up to 8, Rusviet's sitting at 4, Tagawa and Albion haven't even been touched yet. No one's been bid on them. The bidding ends when every single faction has a bid amount. That's how you know it's over. So you
Okay.
don't, the last person to bid gets that combo for 0. So you don't bid on the
Oh,
last faction unless you're ready to walk away with the numbers as they are.
really? Wow. So it's like an auction essentially. Each one just does it does it work like an auction where anyone can raise the numbers back and forth, or is it a turn based
So
thing?
it's a little bit of both. If you look at the left side, there's a player order that was determined randomly by the bidding app. And
Yep.
it's going to take, if I remember correctly, it takes the highest person on the list. It takes the person who's next in the turn order who doesn't have an existing bid. So Kurt
Yeah.
Dog put down the first bid. If I had outbid Kurt Dog, it would have gone to Ninju. If Harry Fan there at the bottom had outbid Ninju, it would have gone back to Kurt Dog. But so you see it. What's going to eventually happen is, I think it's Harry Fan is going to put a bid on Tagawa Mechanical here. And then it's whoever's turn doesn't have a bid active on the board. So
Ah,
I think I'm making it more complicated than it is. Um, you take turns essentially, and
yeah.
if you don't have a current high bid, it's essentially your turn.
Interesting. Now this game actually had a variant in terms of the scoring. That no coins were counted.
Yeah, so
Uh,
we can't actually get into the digital edition game of Scythe and manipulate the scoring. That would be cool if we could, but
yeah.
we can't do that. But what we can do is, for tournament purposes, we can say, hey, we're gonna switch things up. We're gonna create sort of wrinkles by games for this tournament. They were called scenarios. And the scenario for this game was, hey, we're not gonna count the raw coins at the end. So
Yeah.
that's why I was looking at the industrial board earlier as I was talking about that wrinkle, because Albion Industrial gets a lot of coins from upgrades, and it gets a decent amount of coins from deploying. And while an upgrade strat with Albion Industrial is kind of slow, in a bid
Yep.
game, it gets much easier to stall a game out. And you and I have talked before about what it means to stall a game out, to
Yeah.
to not to not be winning as the game goes along, but to prevent the other players from winning the game. And that gets and create a longer game. That gets easier in a bid game because if I have Rust Viet engineering and my bid is 15, well, you no longer have to keep pace with my score through the game. You have to stay within 15 to keep me from ending.
Yes. Huh. So it does tend to even things out
Oh, for
in
sure.
a way. Yeah, that's great. And then how does the fact that coins are not counted, how does that change? I mean, obviously you're looking at the bottom row actions, top row, bottom row actions, and the overall game plan for that faction. Does it have any other effect other than the kind of setting up the bidding?
Well, it tends to make, in this particular round of the tournament, I think what we saw is that rush combinations that can finish the game much quicker and base their points on quickly getting stars and getting lots of territory get even stronger. And combinations that tend to be a little bit slower or have more strength wrapped up in their economies and those raw coins tend to get weaker. So that was part of the challenge for this game, is not just the sort of normal
Yeah.
bidding process. You see Ninju's already up to 15 on plotting and
Yeah.
innovative. But in
Yeah.
addition to that, thinking about the fact that, well, our total scores are going to be lower for one, but that lower score is, I mean, Tagawa Mechanical is probably going to have more coins in a game than Rust Viet Engineering if Rust Viet Engineering is doing a meta rush strategy. So knowing that means, well, Rust Viet Engineering's S tier and Tagawa Mechanical's F tier, but the gap may not be as big as it normally would.
Yeah, that's true. Because the coins are still useful in game. They're not counted at the end, maybe, but they still have, they're still functional, so
Yeah.
there's,
And in this game,
you
of
know,
course, you have to keep enough coins going to trade and produce
yes,
and
exactly. Yeah.
pay for options on encounters. But you can keep pretty much all the options available to you at any time, sitting in on anywhere from 6 to 10 coins most.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. So, and then you've put in the bid for. Have you put in the bid for Polonia Innovative?
We're
Or
almost
is that
there.
you've been outbid there. You did have it at 16, but you got outbid.
Yeah, I got outbid. So I was on Rustviet there at 10 for a minute. I didn't really want to play Rustviet in this
Yeah,
game. Rustviet engineering is pretty vulnerable to Polani Innovative. The Innovative board's a very fast board.
yeah,
Produces over deploy, move is over enlist. So you got the two strongest, most important top row
yes,
actions over the two strongest bottom row actions.
yeah,
So that being the case, Polania can get out of the base really quickly. And Rustviet
yes,
engineering is really strong after they come out of their base. But while
yeah,
they're sitting in their base, they're pretty vulnerable if they can be invaded. Now, Polania is one of the only factions then that can efficiently invade Rustviet. Albion and Tagawa would really struggle to do it in this game. But I
yeah,
was concerned about paying too much for Rustviet engineering in this game because I know Polani Innovative, and I just took it for 18. I just put 18 on it right there, and I think that's going to
yeah.
be the winning bid. I know Polani Innovative can essentially ruin Rustviet's day.
Yes, but
Or
at
yeah,
18 over, that's going to be a tough a tough victory margin potentially. You're getting up there.
yeah, and this is a pretty high level game. We're playing here with players who have all played these combinations multiple times, have an idea of what they're capable of, and there you see the bid
Yeah,
result right there. So
interesting. So which player are you most fearful of in this as things get underway here? I mean, you've probably played against these players before.
I have I think not necessarily from a skill perspective because these are all good players, but I'd say Rustviet is the one I'm the most worried about because having a speed mech, they can do the most to influence and impact my game. And you see, I've got the
Yeah.
bids on the screen over there on the left.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, that's so Togawa and Albion both got has got it for 0.
Yeah, so Albion Industrial, I think most people would feel like is a little bit better than Tagawa Mechanical.
Yeah.
And but the player who took Tagawa Mechanical jumped on it before Albion.
Yeah.
So rather than bid up Tagawa, the last player just went ahead and took Albion because they figured it was probably a little bit better. So you can
Yeah.
see the 00 bids if
Yeah.
the players don't agree about which combination is the worst.
Yeah. So you're going to start with a move action. So what's your initial you want to basically as Polania you want to get the encounters, right? That's kind of your biggest boost?
Yeah, so it's gonna kind of depend on your mat, of course. But what I
Yeah.
typically do with whatever Polania combination I'm playing, for the most part, is try to think about what my most efficient path to the encounter is, and then to the factory. So what I'm hoping to do, generally speaking, you can do a mine start with like the industrial mat, but typically speaking, I'm trying to get to the encounter and I'm trying to do it in a way that also allows me to efficiently get out my speed and submerge mech and then get to the factory. And
Yes.
this opening specifically, I've um, came up with a few years ago. It's in a video called Polani Innovative in 3 minutes, and it's had some
Yeah.
staying power. It's still the one that I would say just about everybody does with Polani Innovative. And that is you start with the move action, trade for
Yeah.
metal, you move again to the encounter. If you get nothing worthwhile on the encounter, you can still trade up to 4 metal, produce a mech, which knocks you down to 1 metal, trade
Yeah.
back up to 3 metal, produce, get the other mech, and then you end up on the factory turn 8. Depending on what
Wow.
you get to the encounter, you can get there as early as turn 5.
Wow, that's fast.
Yeah, it
That is
can be.
fast.
I've seen
Yeah.
I think the fastest I've ever done Polani Innovative is 12 turns.
Yeah.
I think someone beat me, not in a big game, but in a straight up ranked game. I think someone beat me in 11 turns with it once, maybe.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
if you get a factory card that has enlist, for instance, as the bottom row
Yes.
action,
Yeah.
um, you can find yourself doing a bottom row action. You hit the factory with 2 mechs already. You
Yeah.
start
Wow.
alternating between that factory card and getting more mechs, and
Yeah.
those move in, and you're picking up encounters, getting food. those move enlist, factory card enlist produced for mechs, while getting combats, it can end the game pretty
Yeah,
quick.
that's good. So, so what's Togawa? Togawa's just picking their encounter choice there.
Yeah,
So
Tagawa
now,
got the encounter I wanted.
oh
Um,
yeah,
the
that's
innovative
always good.
board is different from every other board for me because it's the one I want oil on because I'm
Yes,
trading for metal anyway, and there's an
yeah,
and 3 oil is under the trade action for an upgrade.
yeah,
So getting oil is absolutely amazing because you can get a move upgrade and a deploy upgrade.
yeah,
Um, but this one's not shabby at all. It's
yeah,
okay. The $2 for 4 metal is really good. The
yeah. But
this
you're obviously not going to take the first one.
Yeah, the $2 is useless in this game, right? Because
Yeah,
it doesn't end up
yeah.
mattering. In hindsight, and hindsight is 2020, if I had taken number 1 instead of number 3, I could have potentially gotten tier 2. But
Oh wow.
in this moment, I thought, well, I'm going to take number 3. And if I don't take number 3, the game maybe plays out differently because
Yeah.
what you're going to see me take here in a second is an armory,
Yeah,
which
which was you were debating back and forth when I watched your playthrough on your channel. You were saying you were trying to figure out what building would be useful for you, and you went with the armory.
mhm.
But you had maybe some second thoughts later on that it may have been a better to do to have picked a different structure.
Well, yeah, there's a couple reasons to do a couple different structures here. The mine is nice because it allows some more exit mobility. But to be
Yep.
honest with Polani, you've got a lot of base exit mobility. You get sent back to home base. There's a lake right next to you. You river
Yep.
walk to a mountain, which is right there 2 spaces away. In fact, if you've got river walk and that mountain is not blocked, it's the same number of spaces to get to a tunnel than than back to your mine on a village.
Yep.
So the mine, if you're going to go with 2 mechs before you leave your base, is not as useful as it could be. I want to say
Yeah.
real quickly here, this was a huge moment in the game.
Yep.
Rustviet Engineering wants to get food on this first encounter
Yes.
because they move and their enlist is underneath their move. And
Oh yes.
if they get food on that first encounter, what they can do is they can produce 3 times for 6 metal,
Oh,
which gives them 3 upgrades. They put 2 of those deploy on, and 1 on enlist. So the mechs cost 2 metal and the
oh,
enlists cost 2 food. Then they
wow.
trade for 2 food 3 different times. So what do they have? They have 3 mechs because they already had the six
Yep.
metal they needed for those mechs, and deploy was under trade.
Yep.
And they have 6 food, which is enough for their last 3 enlists. So you
Wow.
always hold your breath against Rustviet Engineering if someone knows that opening and hope they don't get food.
Yes.
They got the 3 popularity for 5 resources encounter, but the engineering
Yeah.
board, as you probably know, only starts with 2 pop. So they were
Yes.
out of luck on that
Oh,
encounter.
jeez. Wow. That was yeah, because that's a combination that can end the game in 12 turns or less, shall we say, if you get
Yeah,
that.
it's fast. Like with just getting food on that first encounter and perfect combats, you're looking at 14 with the engineering board. But certainly with the right encounters, it can become quicker, like you said.
Yeah. At this level of play, do you find that sometimes a game can come down to an encounter, a more or less random draw?
Oh,
Or
for
do you
sure.
feel that there's yeah, that's interesting because you'd think at higher level play, you distill out a lot of the random elements, it becomes much more game of pure skill, but I guess there's still an element there.
It's strange because it's almost cyclical. When you first start the game and you're learning basic strategies, the encounters can be huge because they give you a whole lot, right?
Yeah.
Um, Once you sort of get in, or this was my experience, once I got to where I felt was kind of like mid tier strategy and starting to learn sequences and sort of meta plays, semi optimal or optimal plays, the encounters became less important. And what became more important was sequences.
Yeah.
Uh, but when I kind of moved beyond that part and got into, I would say, a group of players who play on an advanced level, it kind
Yeah.
of circles back to the encounters being more important because
Interesting.
if everybody kind of knows the same meta, or a lot of the same sequences, then what tips one player over the top is going to be playing on the fly, which is often has a lot to do with what's different each game, which is factory card selection and use, movement, and encounters.
Yeah.
So it's those little things on the advanced level that can make the difference in the game, because a lot of the and I share most of, if not all of my strategies online. So when I go into
Yeah.
these tournament games, a lot of people already know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. That's the only downside with having a YouTube channel. You're broadcasting every play, every strategy. It's like football players watching video, and studying their opponents.
But I'd rather more people care about and want to play the game than win a few more games.
Yeah.
And
So
that's why I do it.
yeah. No, and your channel is excellent. I hope our viewers are gonna check it out. I'm gonna put a link in the description because it's an excellent. If you love Scythe, if you're interested in Scythe, no better channel than yours. I think it's the number one Scythe channel on YouTube for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now as we're kind of moving into the mid game now, aren't we? More or less. Is that now everyone's kind of got their bases established? They're beginning to expand outwards into the towards the factory.
Yeah, I'd say we're just about there.
Yeah.
What we see so far, Albion picked up an encounter there that wasn't that helpful, except it's gonna push them toward tier two. What
Yeah.
I think at this point I know. Let's see. Yeah, it happens right here. Rusviet drops the township mech at this moment.
Yes.
That is not the typical play for Rusviet engineering at this time in the game.
Huh.
Generally speaking, if you didn't get the food, if you got the
Yeah.
food, you can do whatever you want because you're going to be trading for all your food.
Yes.
But what township means to me right now is that he is worried about me enough in this game that he's going to deviate from the normal Rusviet strategy here
Yes.
to keep me from getting the first choice of factory card. Because
Yes.
I'm the one that benefits the most from a good factory card. He knows that, and he's more worried about me than he is any other player in this game. That's what township right there signals to me. So
Interesting.
I pull my second mech here. I can
Yep.
move to the factory the next turn, but I know that since he dropped township and he already has speed on that tundra,
Yeah.
he's going to beat me there. Albion
Yes.
and Tagawa are still trying to set up their economies. Albion kind of went gung ho this
Yep.
game, hoping that they would get what they needed off the encounters, and they really didn't, which slowed down their game. Tagawa is slowly marching to the factory, but they're not going to beat us there. They're going to hope for greater territory control and staying
Yep.
close enough to make us regret our bids, essentially.
Yes. Yeah. Now, I was gonna ask you because obviously, see, look, he moves into the factory right there
Hmm.
and gets first choice of factory cards. How often, like, how good is it to play a suboptimal game for your faction? No, like in an effort to slow down another player. Like, how do you strike that balance?
I'd say that one of the big factors is player count. In a two-player game, you can see even games with advanced players going into the mid 20s on numbers of rounds because you might see players constantly fighting each other with zero power and next to no combat cards.
Yeah.
Um, but what's much more common is to I'd say in 3 to 4 player strategy, in 3 to 4 player games, you you see people deviating from their strategies more if they have movement friendly boards. I would say is one thing. And what's a movement friendly board? A
Okay.
movement friendly board has um, move over enlist, for instance. The innovative board is a movement friendly board.
Yes.
Enlisting is good.
Yep.
So you move to enlist. Right here, I made the decision not to challenge him for the factory and go for an
Yeah.
upgrade here and set myself up for an enlist. I think that ended
Okay.
up being the right call. But
Yeah.
I think sometimes disruption is better if you are in a weaker position to start with than other factions. So if
Okay.
you are on a lot of Nordic combinations, they are weaker than a lot of Rust combinations. A lot of Polania combinations are weaker than Rust Viet combinations. So
Huh.
disrupting, for instance, in this game, Rust Viet engineering is about on par with Polania innovative. I like Polania innovative a little bit more, but that may just be personal preference.
Yeah.
So it's worth it for Polania innovative to disrupt Rust Viet. I don't really go to that this game because Rust Viet's already shown some willingness to disrupt himself
Yeah.
to try to slow
Yeah.
me down.
So in that case, you would typically then it almost locks you into your game plan, and you just
Yeah.
try and execute
Well, and if you have
around what he's doing.
anytime you have a board, like if you're going to build and you have the industrial board and movement is over build, disrupting may be in your favor because you're going to move a lot.
Yeah.
Anytime you have a combination where you depend heavily on a factory card, like, well, almost every Polania combination, you're going to move a lot. Anytime you're moving a lot, and if you can move and get bottom row actions, then disrupting is something that helps you, especially if
Yes.
you can steal resources that give you a bottom row action. If you're on a
Yeah.
board that lends itself less to moving, then every move is an opportunity lost. If I was going to do what it's under my move action anyway, whether it's a factory card or a bottom row action, if I can move, hurt them, and then help myself with a bottom row action, it's a win. If I'm
Yes.
moving and accomplishing nothing for me, um, it's potentially a loss for me and the other player and just elevating the other player's game. So it's a difficult balance to
Yeah.
strike, and a lot of it comes from experience. But I'd
Yep.
say the fewer the player count, the more disruption helps you. One thing to
Yeah.
think about is this going to hurt them a little bit, or is this going to just take them out of the game? You're in a
Yeah.
three-player game and you could make a move and use, say, one turn to take somebody out of the game. There's a good
Oh,
chance it's worth it. You may lose some
yes.
friends, but it's a good chance it's
Yeah.
worth it.
Well, what happens on the side table stays at the side table, right?
We all
Yeah.
hope so.
Yeah. Now, Rusty had just abandoned the factory, which seems to me a bit surprising.
He in discussions with him after the game, he had bad combat cards and he
Yeah.
didn't think he could hold the factory. But I was
Uh,
glad he did it because as you're seeing right here,
yeah.
I'm moving to attack Albion on that mountain tunnel. Uh,
Yes.
I would have gotten my combat anyway if I had pushed the issue with Rustviet, but it was a
Yeah.
little bit cheaper to fight Albion than it would have been to fight Rustviet.
Yeah.
And so I kind of benefited a little bit from that. The combat with Albion also let me set myself up to produce my mechs, which
Yes.
2-on-1 combat with Rustviet would not have done. Now I want to point
Yeah.
out something I did here that I think is a mistake. Not in the combat, but if you see those two workers that are on that farm over there,
Yeah.
Rustviet's character, you can't see it right now, but is on that village encounter right outside of
Oh,
Saxony and Crimea's base.
yeah.
Rustviet's Riverwalk, as you know, is to farms and villages. He can
Yeah.
actually invade my base and take that food. I 100% should have brought that mech. Now,
Yes.
I don't know for a fact that he had an opportunity. I'm pretty sure he did have an opportunity to do it at one point and passed. Could I have
Oh,
retaken it
wow.
back? Yes, I could have. I could have retaken
Yeah.
it back and spent that food in the same turn, but my workers would have still been on base.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things. Sometimes you'll find with certain combinations you can bump workers
Yep.
and they can come back. If you don't send the mech back to home base, they have to bring those workers out on another spot. So I
Yeah.
could have counterattacked with that mech, but I would have had to bring my workers out to that forest
Oh,
spot instead of that farm, which would have slowed me down. So
yeah.
I think that was a
Wow.
mistake on my part.
Yeah. But it was even more of a mistake on Rustviet's part in that they didn't jump on it. You
Yeah.
know,
But
it was a vulnerability.
by the time I saw it, they couldn't use the factory card.
Hmm.
Um, and actually, they may not have been able to use the factory card this turn. And I think the next mech I drop, we'll have to see. I can't remember if I dropped it on the mountain or the farm. But if I dropped it on the
Wow.
mountain, that was another mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and the factory card that you took, um, it gives you it's a cost you a combat card, but gives you some resources. So, what was the thinking in choosing that one? Was it the best of the of a bad lot, or was there?
Yeah, the ones remaining weren't great. They all gave you coins, which
Yes.
for this game, as we've discussed, is useless. Uh,
Yes.
so it was kind of an obvious choice there. But I actually like that factory card a lot with Polania Innovative because if you look at the innovative board, which were not highlighted, yeah, Rustviet can't use their factory card this turn, so they actually can't invade my farm. You saw it
Okay.
highlighted over Rustviet's board just then.
Yes.
3 metal is what you need to make a mech, and
Yep.
3 food is what you need without an upgrade to make it enlist. So
Yeah.
the downside of this combat card is you don't get a bottom row action when you use your factory card, but you can
Yeah.
factory card, drop some resources, move to an encounter, and then go right into a produce or a move next turn and grab a deploy or an enlist. So
Yes.
let's see, I'm trying to remember what I take here. No, this is going to be a produce.
Okay. Oh, and leaving that spot even more vulnerable
And let's
with
see
the
here.
extra additional.
Well, wait a second. Let's
Or
see
do
where I
you?
put this mech.
It's where you drop the mech.
See, I'm thinking about the mountain. I'm
Yeah,
thinking
you
about the
are.
mountain too. Yeah, I did it on the
You
mountain.
did.
I was worried. I was looking at Tagawa down there, okay,
Yes.
on that village tunnel, because
Yep.
Tagawa's got the mechanical board, and
Yes.
they're going to be bolstering while they're making their
Yep.
mechs. And I thought, well, you know what? If Tagawa decides they want to disrupt my game, they may go ham on me. And I think right there when I highlighted over Rustvia's board was when I realized that they could invade
Yeah.
there
Oh,
with
yes.
the the nice the saving grace of it all, I guess, is if Rustviet had taken that, I could have counterattacked Rustviet, spent the food, and then, with the factory card I had, probably could have recovered, but it certainly would have been big an injury to my game.
Yes. Now, would it have slowed down Rust Viet at all if you're, or is that just a very low cost action for them that costs you a bunch of time and they can, take advantage?
Well, Rustviet was probably going to use the factory card move anyway,
Yeah.
to drop a mech. So it
Yep.
probably would have been pretty low cost for them as well. So
Yeah.
right now, I'm attacking
Huh.
Rusviet because Rusviet has almost no power and almost no cards.
And you've got a bunch of great wow, that's a lot of
The
you
the
could
combat cards were with me
crush
this
them.
game.
Yes. That's great.
So my thinking here is I only need one more mech, right?
Yes.
And I have a factory card that gives me metal if I want
Yes.
it. So I don't
Yeah.
have to be on a mountain for that last produce. I can get to 8 workers and get to 4 mechs at the same time. Because normally you might have to
Nice.
produce again, get your 4th mech, move the
Yeah.
workers, produce again. That's 2 extra turns.
Yeah.
Using the factory card, I can get the metal in 1 turn and thereby save a turn.
Huh. Yeah, that's perfect. And you set the Rustviet player back a little bit. Now, are you at all worried about Albion or Togawa? It seems like they're pretty much non-factors on the board so far, but I might be missing something.
Tagawa was a threat to me on that village tunnel, and
Yeah.
Albion could have counterattacked me because they had a flag on that mountain.
Yes.
They chose not to be aggressive, and I think that's another reason that I went ahead and put that mech on the mountain there, is
Yeah.
because I was more concerned at that point about those 3 workers getting sent off the mountain, and
Yep.
then I was concerned about losing the food on the farm. But
Huh.
Tagawa definitely could have been more aggressive. Definitely could have hit
Yep.
me on that mountain. Albion could have counterattacked me on that mountain. But Albion was not in a great position, power and combat card wise, to do it. It
Yep.
would have cost them quite a bit, and they just made the decision to leave me alone.
Yeah. Now, is that generally, if you're in a faction which you've just paid 0 victory points for, 0 points for, um, should you be more aggressive generally? Is that something that, I mean, because you can, if you can expand, I mean, obviously you have to balance it between, make sure you're not overextending, but should Albion, for example, have been more aggressive this game, do you think?
I think Albion had a very specific strategy in mind
Yeah.
and was hoping to get some certain things off the encounters, and I don't remember what.
Yeah,
But
because that seems like a very risky strategy just to bank it all on getting the right encounter.
yeah, it certainly can be. And there's some players who I know one guy who has a spreadsheet that he can punch in. He's really good with Excel, and he can punch in, oh, what are the chances that I get 2 or more oil off an encounter? And it will tell him, the spreadsheet will show him all the encounters that will give it to him and what the percentage chance is that he'll get it at any given point in time. So some
Oh,
players
wow.
take the encounter roulette very seriously.
Yes.
I That's one part of the game I haven't delved into as much as a lot of players. But if I had
Yeah.
been playing Albion Industrial, I probably would have rushed the factory because I could have gotten there by turn 7.
Yep.
I would have then been very sorely disappointed when Russ Viet chose to beat me there by, I think, turn 6.
Yeah.
So I would have done it differently, but I can't tell you that it worked. I can't tell you for sure it would have
Yeah.
worked out better.
No, 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 because it depends on what everyone else does, but yeah, it's interesting because just maybe it's just your perspective on the game, but it seems like the game is Polania, Rusviet, and then there's a supporting cast of Albion and Togawa, that
Yeah,
really it's between you 2.
and it can feel that way sometimes, even in bid games when the IFA factions are present, or when you
Yeah,
have some players who, by their own play style or the combination they've been dealt, stay on their own and try to run their own economy. I'm out on the board moving around for one, because Polania has no metal in their base.
yeah,
And for two, because once I go from 5 workers to 8, if I have to bring them out onto the
yes,
board, it takes that much longer to spread them than if they're already there.
yes.
Especially if Albion will sometimes do this sort of rolling ball of death, as some of us call it, where we stack up
Yeah.
a billion mechs on that tundra and then move all of them to the mountain, and then all of them to the forest, and then all of them to the factory. So if Albion blocks me with the ball of death, then suddenly it gets harder to get those workers out of my base because I didn't take the mine.
Yes.
Because I wasn't
Yeah.
planning to use it. And here's the turn that I took the metal that I was talking to you about. I
Okay.
use the factory card, I take the metal.
Yep.
And what I'm thinking
Perfect.
right here is, do I want to take this encounter? And I decide, no, I want to protect my resources. This was a very conservative play here. I
Yeah.
could have sped up the game a little bit by doing a regular move action this turn, because you see I have 2 enlist left, but
Yep.
only 1 produce deploy left. So when you
Mhm.
have 2 of one thing and 1 of the other thing, it stands to reason you go for the thing you have 2 of first, right?
Yeah.
Because then you could do enlist, deploy, enlist. Whereas if you deploy, produce, which is what I'm going to end up doing first, then you got to do something else. So
Yeah.
produce, deploy, move, enlist, do something else, move, enlist.
Yep.
So in
Yep.
hindsight, maybe I should have done that differently. At the time, what I was thinking is, look, I want to get my workers spread out for these move actions. And if I
Yep.
do a move action when I'm not at 8 workers to get this third enlist, I'm going to be missing on some spread. And I
Yes.
wasn't concerned at that moment about anyone finishing the game before me, because
No, it doesn't look like anyone's in the position to.
I'm counting the bottom row actions left, and I think right now I'm on pace in the game, if everything goes according to plan, 1 turn sooner than Rusviet. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of playing with that. And here's where I finally put a mech up on the farm. I'm pretty sure, because Rusviet is on that tunnel up there and could actually still
Yep.
factory card to that farm.
Yeah, there you go.
So there's the mech.
Nice. Yeah, it would have been a very interesting twist on the game if, he had invaded your base. That's, it's never a fun thing to have the bad guys rummaging around in your back 40 there.
Yeah. And I don't know if you caught that, but I'm only up on Albion by 10 right now.
Oh,
And I've got
really?
4 more coins than he is. So he does.
Oh,
So I'm actually only up by 6. And I've
oh,
got a bit of 18. But
yeah.
and
But with some spread, you should be okay. I would imagine if you time it right.
I should. The one thing I'm worried about right now is what happens if Albion makes it to the factory. But good
Yeah.
news for me, Albion does not have a move upgrade. There's this cool
Huh.
little thing you can do with Albion you probably know about. A lot of us call it a worker whip, where if
Uh-huh.
you have a move upgrade because you have rally, you can move a mech and a worker one space ahead. In this case, he would move from that tundra to that forest right there. Then with
Yep.
the second move, he can move the worker to the factory. And then using rally, his character can move to the factory from anywhere. So
Oh,
it's
there you go.
it's
Yep.
essentially Albion's fake speed mech. Um,
Yeah.
so I was a little worried that he'd do the worker whip, but you need a move
Yep.
upgrade to do that. And he's trying to get the move upgrade, I think, which is why we see oil on the ground there, but he doesn't have it yet.
Yes. Yeah, so everyone so Albion was maybe closer than it appears to doing, because Albion just needs to beat Togawa by 1, right? In order, and then beat your margins on Resviet and Polania.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
Albion here is not close to. They have their mech stars and their worker star. The thing they're struggling with is where is the second bottom row action star coming from? Because as you
Yeah.
know, in most games, you're going to need two bottom row action stars. Um,
Yep.
a lot of times, mechs and workers, objectives, an objective, and some combats.
Yep.
Um, I had population advantage in this game and underworld advantage, so
Yep.
I can get 3 tunnels or 3 villages. But yeah, Albion's 2 turns away from the factory.
Yeah.
They've taken their turn 13, but on turn 15, if they so choose and no one else is there, they can get the factory. The weakest part of the worker whip is the worker has to get to the spot you want to go. So if
Yep.
someone else is on it, you can't take it because the
Oh,
worker
yes.
obviously can't initiate combat or go into enemy controlled territory. I had a misclick here. Um,
Oh, no.
yeah, I had a misclick. Uh, I was going to take you see me moving this worker to the tundra and moving to
Yeah.
this lake. Albion can't go to lakes. Rusviet can't go to lakes. And Tagawa can go to lakes, but is forever away from this lake. So I'm not that worried. I
Yeah.
meant to bring my resources here because they'd be completely safe. Take
Yes.
the character to this encounter. And then what that would allow me to do is to take a mech and 2 workers, drop 1 mech on that farm, and take the other mech to that forest outside of Saxony's base.
Yep.
Because that way I pick up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 territories this turn. You saw
Oh,
me
wow.
leave my resources behind by mistake.
Yes.
So now I can't confidently move that second mech
Oh, yeah.
without risking Rusviet bumping a worker off that farm with 1 mech and attacking
Yeah.
me with the other mech with People's Army. So
Yes.
I have to give up essentially gaining 1 territory here, because
Oh,
these resources are keeping these resources is pretty vital to me at this point.
yes. Oh, yes, absolutely.
So I was kicking myself on that one, and
Yeah.
thankfully,
Is this why you're puzzling through your move right here? Is you're, "Oh, shoot. Shouldn't have done that."
yeah, trying to decide
Yeah.
because I can't drop a worker on that lake and I can't river walk to that farm. So there's no
Yeah.
way. Tagawa has Sutan too. So if I
Yep.
move to that lake right next to Tagawa, which would be a way to pick up an extra territory, they're just going to
Yes.
attack me with and
Yeah.
Sutan's People's Army on on water, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to lose my resources to Tagawa instead of Rusviet.
Yeah.
This
Interesting.
this was
S
useful. I mean, 3 combat cards
Yep.
and a little bit of power.
Yep.
Not game breaking, but it certainly it
Yeah.
helped to be in a good position to even if you have your combats late, power and combat cards helps with board control and the threat of
Yes.
board control.
It's always the threat when they see a mitt full of combat cards and they know there's probably gonna be a 4 or 5 in there, then combat becomes a much bigger decision for them.
So
Um,
here's Albion, and they take the move
yep.
upgrade. So next turn, Albion can move to the factory.
Factory. Yeah.
But Rusviet's looking there, and they're seeing that I only have 1 enlist left.
Yes.
They don't know if I have a doable objective or not, but they know that
Yeah.
an objective and 1 more enlist, and it's game over.
It's game, yeah. So this may be, Resviet's last turn, and
Yeah,
so
well,
if that
I can't move enlist this turn. So what could
oh,
happen is I could factory card to an encounter if there's one I can. Yeah, there is one I can reach. I could have factory
yeah,
carded to an encounter, and if the
yeah.
encounter gave me an enlist, yeah, game over.
Wow.
Rustvia doesn't know that I would have to lose my third village to do that and wouldn't get my objective. But yeah, there's
Yes.
a threat I'll end the turn if I get the right encounter, or that I'll end in 2 turns if I just go ahead and spread some with the factory card and then go straight into another move and list. So
Yeah.
Rustvia locks down the factory here, keeping Albion off of.
Yeah. That's Albion must have been really mad at that point.
Yeah, I
Now it
don't.
looks like Russ. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think they're happy about it. Russ is actually ahead at the moment.
Yeah, I
Score.
was gonna say that they're spreading, so it looks like they're kind of moving into their preparing for the end game here,
Yeah.
more or less, right?
And Rusty doesn't know it. I can take the factory from them if it's the best play
Yeah.
for me, because somehow I'm sitting on 3 5s and 2 4s after already
Yeah.
getting 2 combat stars. It was a really
Yeah.
lucky round for me in terms of combat cards. But Rusty right there keeps Albion off the factory. But
Yes.
if they hadn't, I would have. I would have dropped a worker there at the very least, and then
Yeah.
Albion would have taken Albion 2 moves to get to the factory instead of one,
Yeah.
which is 3 turns instead of one when
That's
can only
funny
move
how
every
just
other
a
turn.
single worker can hold back the the another player from moving in.
Yeah.
So, oh,
It-
Togawa's finally done something. Look at that. It just feels like they've been static
yeah,
for
Tagawa's been really quiet this game, but
yeah.
they're getting credit right now for 7 territories,
Yeah.
which is actually quite a bit. It's
Yeah.
and I just get oil because why not?
Yes,
Wasn't
sure.
going to matter at that point what I get. So I'm just trying to figure out here what the best way to distribute my workers is, and I
Yep.
go with this. Go with just taking 2 of them, leaving the lake. Uh,
Yep.
had a couple options here. Decided decided to kind of put some clog up the area around Albion and kind
Yep.
of keep Rustviet off Albion a little bit. Um, it could have it was 6 of one, half dozen or another. There were a
Yeah.
lot of different ways I could move there. But what I wanted to do um, to get the maximum amount of territory is move to a land territory first rather than a lake. Um,
Hmm.
because if I moved to a lake first, I couldn't drop a worker, so I'd end up going from 1 territory to 2. Whereas I just went from 1 territory to 3, and my margin over Albion and Tagawa now you see is about 8. Is about 18.
Yeah. So it's down to the wire.
Hmm.
Now, were you sweating bullets here, or did you feel like you more or less had things in control by this point?
Tagawa can't move this turn. Rustviet
They're
can because they're Rustviet. Um, I was trying to think through the math of what happens if Rustviet bumps 3 of my workers. And
yes.
I can't tell you 100% that I had it that turn if they did. But what I knew is that for Rustviet to bump that many workers, they'd have to leave the factory vulnerable. And I could
Yeah.
take the factory. So I was pretty sure at this point that I had it. I hadn't
Yeah.
done all the math. The It wasn't Rustviet's score actually that I was looking at. I was gonna be okay covering Rustviet's score. The question was at this point is Rustviet going to keep me from covering Albion's score?
Ah.
Because after the bids, Albion's actually quite a bit closer to me than Rustviet is.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, I guess, yeah, that's the case. It's the end game. Do you find the end game in this is always tricky, or it seems like this is a real math exercise to figure out what's gonna whether you can pull it off or not.
Yeah, it is, especially in bid games.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, the bidding would actually be integrated. And here's Rustviet's decision to just bump the one. I guess they used the factory card
Okay.
and just bump the one worker. Uh,
Okay.
or maybe they did a regular move. We can see when it goes back to the.
Yeah.
Um, um, but anyway, it's in a perfect world, the bidding would be integrated into the score preview online instead of having to do all
Yeah.
that math. Um,
Yeah.
People who play in person obviously don't have this score preview, and some people hate it. Um, I think it's good that you don't have it when you play in real life. I don't mind it
Yes.
online because games are timed and often anonymous. And if I'm
Yep.
playing somebody with a 20-minute timer and they have 10 minutes left on the last move of the game, I don't want them using 8. I'd rather than
Yeah.
just know the score and put me out of my misery.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing inside, you can't really enforce that you spend too much time calculating your score, you lose popularity rule.
Yeah.
And if everyone's in tier 1, losing popularity doesn't hurt anyway. But you see,
No.
Albion here in tier 2 is within 10 points of my score.
Yeah.
And I have 2 more coins than them. So they're
Yeah.
actually
12.
they're within 8, right? So they're up on me by
Yeah.
10.
For sure, yeah. Yeah.
So I've got to say, well, am I picking up 11 points this turn? And
Yeah.
I've got 3 moves I can make, spread a little
Yep.
workers, and 2 stars I'm going to pick up. So I've got to pick up 5 points worth of territories. So I've got to get 6 territories.
Yep.
And it's really, really, really close right now. So
Wow.
what I decided was, I'm not sure I have it. I can move the mech on the farm over there up to the lumber space
Yep.
and then to the lake and pick up 2 territories
Yep.
there. But I
Yep.
decided what I'm going to do is just knock Albion off this village. Um,
Interesting.
it's got a flag there. It's got a
Yep.
mech all by itself,
Yep.
and I can win the combat pretty easy against Albion. So
You got the combat cards.
and flags are amazing, and tier 2 is amazing, but
Yeah.
they're a two-edged sword. And Albion, it's easy to get a lot of points with not too many territories, but it's also easy for people to take a lot of points away from you at the end of the game.
Yeah.
And here's where, even though my object is 3 villages, I go ahead and get my 5th village.
Yeah. Well, it's an insurance policy.
There you go.
Just in case.
But yeah, he gains shield. His max is
Yep.
9. Of course, I'm
Yep.
sitting on amazing cards. Never
Wow.
overspend power. It's a tiebreaker.
Yep.
If you know your opponent can do a max of 9, you throw 9. Never just throw down 7 power just because, even if you know you're going to win. There's a, you could have
Yeah.
made a mistake. It's just a good habit to be in.
Yeah.
But there
Well,
it
and you
is.
leave yourself vulnerable in the future if you
Mhm.
overdo it.
And there's the score right there. Albion drops down to 22. So you see, I got a 4
Yeah.
coin advantage over them. So it's really like
Yep.
44, 44, 22, which is a 22 point. I'm struggling
Yep.
doing the math on the fly. I think I ended up
Yeah.
beating second place by 7 coins is how it
Yeah.
worked out.
Yeah.
So um,
Geez,
bid
it must take a lot
18.
of concentration to do this in the heat of the game. Do the math.
Yeah, and I make it a little bit harder on myself because I'm making a video and talking about it as I'm doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
So if I do the math wrong, everybody gets to watch me do it wrong later. Um, which so I try to talk it out just so I don't get it wrong, and so people get to kind of follow and experience my thought process.
So that's it.
That's it.
It's great.
So I was pretty thrilled.
Yeah,
I
that's
lost game 1.
yeah.
So I was pretty happy to come back with this second game. Oh, there it is. Yeah, 51. So 4 more coins in Albion. So essentially dropped me down to 47, which is
Yep.
25 away. Take away the bid of 18. It's a win by 7.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's great. That's a pretty solid win. And considering how close it was towards the end, that to have you pull away like that, that was excellent.
It's amazing inside how meaningful it is to be the one that ends the game and how valuable it is to be the one that ends the game. Because
Yes.
that last move action that you make, you can pick up 6 territories and you
Yeah.
can take 3 away from somebody else, and one of those can be the factory. So
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen 40-point turns
Yeah.
where somebody goes, because I gain 20 and the other person loses 20. It's just,
Yeah.
Scythe is a game that's billed, and rightly so, as a game that's not just about ending it, but is about playing the best, because the person who ends doesn't necessarily win. And that's a really cool feature of Scythe, and I don't want to downplay that mechanic. But at the same time, it's important not to underestimate the power of ending the game on your own terms.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And time if you can end the game a turn before the other players can do that final push, then that's part of it, right? Is timing the ending so that it suits you
Yeah.
and hurts your opponents. So,
Yeah.
oh no, that's great. Thank you so much for walking us through this game. I know you know you're right in the middle of this competition. When can viewers? You'll be covering every game in this tournament on your channel.
Yeah, every game I play, I'll be putting in my channel, and hopefully, I'll that will include an elimination round,
Yes.
and the final round. Hopefully, I end up in the top 8 here, and I don't have to play 2 elimination rounds.
Yes.
Um, but what I've tried to do every tournament is if I don't end up in the final round to stream the game for other people to watch live, and then put it on the
Yes.
YouTube channel later for people to watch, because
Okay.
it's really cool to participate in and to sort of almost sportscast the final round if I don't get to play it.
Yeah, you put a lot of cognitive load on yourself by talking through a game while you're playing it. That's a lot
You know,
of
it's a two-edged sword. I think sometimes I don't see plays or make mistakes I wouldn't make if I was talking, but I think sometimes talking it through, you say, "Well, I'm gonna do such and such," and then you hear yourself and you say, "Wait a second, no, that's I shouldn't do that at all." So I think
that's
it can hurt and I think it can help, but,
yeah,
I it's worth it to create content, I guess I would say.
yeah. Oh, for sure. So where can people find the live stream? And I mean, obviously, we'll link to your YouTube channel, but how can they watch this tournament unfold?
Well,
Um,
the next the this game 2, just dropped today, in fact. So, what's today? Should I
it's
say what today is?
October 14th.
October 14th. So it just dropped on my channel this afternoon, actually. So that it's there if someone wants to watch this game with my live commentary on it. Um, I about a week from now, so probably about the same time that this video I think is coming up. I don't want to be presumptuous about that. I'll probably have game 3 up by then, and
Yeah.
then it'll be about a game a week, basically
Okay.
going forward until the tournament's over.
And how can they find out about the games when they're being played if they want to watch them live or
The best way
um,
would be to join the fan created side Discord.
yeah, which
Um,
I will put in the description?
Yes, it's a great community. I really enjoy being a part of it. There are a lot of great people in there. It's a pretty smaller, tight knit community, but it's very welcoming, and a lot of people who love the game a lot and always looking for new people to play and even teach how to play. So it's something that I encourage people to check out for sure. But joining that, you can easily get notifications for games and tournament announcements, or just check in on your own terms and see what's going on.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you so much for taking the time to go through the game in detail and breaking it down for some of the players who may be watching this that are a little bit newer to the game, or maybe they're just kind of curious. They've heard about this side game, everyone's talking about it, and they just wanted to kind of see what it's all about. So thank you for breaking it down and for us lower tier players that are aspire to be as good as you one day.
Well, thank you very much, Nato. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.